So, we're all starting to get the hang of AI, right? But have you ever felt like it's missing something crucial? Like it has all this incredible brain power, but absolutely no memory? Well, today we're diving into the developer toolkit that's changing all of that, helping build AIs that are not just smart, but actually context-aware. I mean, think about the chatbots you interact with. And yeah, they're super impressive, but don't they feel a little stuck? What if an AI could actually remember what you told it 5 minutes ago? Or even better, what if you could ask it to analyze a PDF that's sitting on your desktop, something it was definitely never trained on? These aren't just pie-in-the-sky ideas. They're the exact challenges that AI developers are tackling right now. You see, the models that power all of this, the large language models, or LLMs, they are truly brilliant. But, and this is a big but, they come with a couple of major built-in limitations. First, they have zero memory of past conversations. And second, their knowledge is basically a snapshot frozen in time. They can't access anything new or private.
All right, so let's really break this down. What exactly are these two fundamental walls that developers keep running into? Because once you understand the problem, the solution makes so much more sense.
Okay, so it really comes down to these two things. First, an LLM is stateless, which is a fancy way of saying it treats every single question you ask like you're a complete stranger. It forgets everything you just said. And second, its knowledge is fixed. If its training data stopped in 2023, it has no idea about today's news, your company's latest report, or anything that happened since.
So how do developers get around these massive roadblocks? Well, that's where this incredibly powerful framework called LangChain comes into the picture. You can think of it as the specialized toolkit that's been designed to give AI both a working memory and a window to the outside world. The best way to think about LangChain is like a giant box of Lego bricks, but for building AI. It gives developers all these different modular pieces that they can just snap together to create really powerful and complex applications without having to reinvent the wheel every single time.
And what's cool is that this toolkit is super organized. It all starts with the LangChain core, just the absolute basics. Then you layer on more complex stuff like workflows, and then specific packages to plug into tools like OpenAI. And on top of that, there's a huge community package for pretty much everything else. This layered design makes it incredibly flexible and powerful.
Okay, so let's pop open the toolbox. We're going to look at the core Lego bricks the developers use to put together these amazing new AI applications.
First up, we've got prompts. You know how you have to type out super specific instructions for an AI? Well, instead of doing that from scratch every time, developers create a template with little placeholders in it. This lets them feed new information into a consistent set of instructions, which makes their apps way more reliable.
And here's a perfect example of why that's so powerful. A developer writes one template, tell me the parts of speech in this sentence, and then they can plug in any sentence they want. The AI follows the same instructions perfectly every time and gives back a nice, structured, predictable answer. And that's the whole point, predictability.
All right, next up are chains. So a single instruction is great, but what if you need the AI to do a few things in a row? A chain lets you link different actions together into a pipeline. So for instance, you could build a chain that first has the AI summarize a super long article and then immediately passes that summary to another model to translate it into French.
And here we see a super simple chain in action. Step 1 was feeding the AI a long sentence about LangChain. Step 2 was giving it the instruction to summarize that sentence in one line. And boom, the output is exactly that, a clean, perfect little summary.
Okay, remember that whole stateless problem we talked about? The AI forgetting everything? Well, this is the fix. The memory component is literally a building block that developers can plug into their app to store the conversation history. It gives the AI a short-term memory. And you can see just how much of a difference this makes. A user introduces themselves. A little later, they ask the AI if it remembers their name. And because the app was built with that memory component, the AI can actually look back at the chat history and say, of course, your name is Geek. This one simple thing is a total game changer for making chatbots feel natural. So, that takes care of the memory problem. But what about the other one? The fact that the AI's knowledge is stuck in the past. That's where retrievers come in. These are the tools that connect the LLM to an external source of info. Could be your private documents, a database, whatever. And they retrieve the most relevant pieces of information to help answer a question.
So check this out. Somebody asked a question about what LangChain is used for. Instead of just using its old baked-in knowledge, the app used a retriever to search through a custom set of documents. It found the 3 most relevant sentences from that knowledge base and used them to build a much more specific and accurate answer.
Okay, now this is where things start to get really smart. We're talking about agents.
An agent basically acts like the brain of the operation. It can look at a question and decide on a plan of action. Does it need to do some math? Does it need to search the web? Or can it just answer from what it already knows? The agent makes that call.
This is just a perfect, simple example. The user asks, what's 25 times 16? The agent thinks to itself, to find the product, I should use a calculator. It then picks the calculator tool, gives it the numbers, gets the answer 400, and then presents that as the final answer. It's actually reasoning about which tool is the right one for the job.
And last but not least, we have Output Parsers. You know how an AI just gives you back a chunk of text? Well, for another computer program, that's kind of messy and hard to work with. An Output Parser is like a strict editor that forces the AI's response into a perfectly structured format, like JSON, so that it can be reliably used by other parts of an application.
All right, so we've looked at all the individual Lego bricks. Now let's see how developers actually snap them all together to build something that's way more powerful than the sum of its parts.
This diagram right here, this is the magic. This is how it all clicks together. A user asks a question about their private PDFs. So first, those documents are loaded into something called a vector store. You can just think of it as a super smart library that organizes information by meaning. Then, the retriever searches that library for the most relevant snippets. And finally, it gives only those relevant snippets plus the original question to the LLM. The AI now has the exact context it needs to give a perfect, tailored answer. That is the secret sauce to making an AI an expert on your stuff.
So, you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool toolkit for developers, but why does it matter to me? Because these Lego bricks aren't just for building better chatbots, they actually represent a huge shift in what artificial intelligence can do for all of us.
Well, the huge takeaway here is this. We're basically ending the era of the forgetful, walled-off AI. Developers can now build apps that remember you, that are connected to real-time, custom data, and that can use other tools to get work done in the real world. We are moving from simple chatbots to truly personalized AI assistants that can solve much more complex problems.
By giving AI a memory and a connection to the world around it, these tools have completely expanded what's possible. It really leaves you wondering, right? Now that developers everywhere have access to these powerful building blocks, what incredible new solutions are just waiting to be built?